Welcome back to The Real Story. It's time for the latest updates on the war between Russia and Ukraine. Today in Istanbul, Turkey, Russian and Ukrainian delegations met for their second round of direct peace talks since the war began. However, their positions still remain very far apart. Both sides presented their own proposals featuring their respective terms for a peace deal. But it's unclear if those talks will lead to any meaningful consensus moving forward. Now, the previous peace talks, held back on May 16th, led to a historic prisoner swap that set the stage for further peace discussions. But even still, tensions remain very high because today's talks come after one of the most intense air attacks seen in this war since it began. That brings us to the weekend, when Ukrainian forces launched a massive drone attack consisting of about 117 drones, and it was deep inside of Russian territory, with Ukrainian officials claiming to have destroyed more than 40 Russian military bombers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky personally oversaw this strike, codenamed Operation Spider's Web, and apparently it took over 1.5 years to plan and execute. The attack also came as Russia launched another attack against Ukraine, reportedly deploying 472 drones and multiple missiles, representing yet another tit for tat that could sabotage the Trump administration's efforts to end this brutal war as soon as physically possible. These developments also raise a lot of questions about whether or not Zelensky or Putin are even serious about ending this conflict. So on that note, on Sunday in Paris, 2 U.S. senators, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, claim that Putin is preparing for even more war. And that follows recent meetings with Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron. They even said Putin is stalling negotiations to prepare for a new military offensive, potentially set for this summer or fall. And they both said a new round of economic sanctions on Russia could be the very last chance to prevent Moscow from engaging in any more strikes. Moreover, their bipartisan sanctions bill, which is supported by roughly 82 U.S. senators, would place 500% tariffs on any country that props up Russia's economy by purchasing certain Russian exports, including oil and gas, and some of those countries being China and India. Such tensions have left very little hope for the progress of future peace talks, and now all eyes are on the Trump administration as tensions on the battlefield rapidly escalate. Here with reaction is Davis Younts, a military defense attorney with Younts Law. Davis, thank you for being here.
Riley, it's an honor to join you.
It's an honor to have you, and I have to say I'm getting a little bit frustrated. I want to get your initial reaction to what we saw over the weekend and then pivot to another point that I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, so what we have seen is one of the largest and reportedly most successful drone strikes in the war to date, and really in military history, if we believe the initial reports that approximately 40 Russian bombers were damaged. So this took 18 months to plan. It likely involved infiltration of trucks, some sort of cargo containers carrying drones deep into Russian territory. We're talking about 2,500 miles roughly from Kiev. So this was a very well designed, coordinated, very carefully planned out drone strike. So just from a warfare perspective, it does represent a very, very effective attack by Ukraine, presenting a significant problem for Russia and really potentially, at least temporarily, restricting their ability to use long-range bombers against Ukraine or in any sort of national defense. So a very, very significant development. And even with that, Russia's attack on Ukraine last night and over the weekend were some of the largest that they have done using drones, missiles, and other things. So it does not seem like we're seeing a de-escalation at this point.
No, it doesn't, and I think part of the problem, Davis, is it brings us back to U.S. lawmakers. So President Trump is trying to end this war, but the trick to that is remaining impartial, at least on the surface. Maybe he has, his own personal thoughts, but just as far as the world goes, he has to remain impartial and neutral. And it's really hard to do that, Davis, when you have U.S. lawmakers like Lindsey Graham, of all people, sabotaging the perception of his impartiality. I want to ask you about a statement that Lindsey Graham made over the weekend. So this came on social media in response to some reports. He says, quote, The ever-resourceful Ukraine used creative drone warfare tactics to successfully attack Russian bombers and military assets used to kill Ukrainian citizens and destroy their country. Russia indiscriminately kills men, women, and children. It's time for the world to act decisively against Russia's aggression by holding China and others accountable for buying cheap Russian oil that props up Putin's war machine. If you want this war to end, push China to help end it. I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's concerning because it seems like he's taking sides very clearly and undermining Trump's ability to end this war. So what do you make of that?
I think there's a couple of things that are worth noting about this. First of all, you have a sitting United States senator from the same party as the President of the United States traveling to Europe, meeting with the French president and with Vladimir Zelensky while ongoing efforts are being made to negotiate an end to this. That's the first point. That's unusual, and it calls into question, his ability to remain loyal to Trump and let Trump and the State Department lead the way in these negotiations. That's one piece of this. The other piece of this is we have to understand, unfortunately, Senator Graham has a history of not seeing any war that he doesn't like and not seizing on any opportunity, it appears, to have the United States engaged in conflicts all over the world. So what you see is, two senators, one Democrat, one Republican, meeting with these heads of state on their own in Europe, and then putting forward bipartisan legislation to try to impose sanction on Russia. And again, from a Russian perspective, not being an apologist for Vladimir Putin's aggression or his history as a communist dictator, the reality is how does this look to him? What signals is he being sent? And does he believe he's in some sort of an existential battle for the survival of Russia against aggressive European countries? So all of that is in the background. Ultimately, this is going to come down to the leadership of President Trump on the international stage, and will he have the opportunity to leverage all of the diplomatic power of the United States to send clear messages and to negotiate an outcome? And he is a master at that. He needs to be given time and the opportunity to work this, because nothing that the Biden administration done and nothing that neocons in D.C. have done has helped to this point.
Oh, completely. So then, Davis, what are you expecting to see in the coming days?
I hope that these negotiations actually continue. I think they'll have a short meeting today. I don't know what the plan is, if they'll continue to meet over the next coming days. As it stands right now, Ukraine is standing firm on essentially saying that they are wanting to go back to pre-invasion. Russia is saying the conditions that caused us to invade in the first place haven't been resolved, that Ukraine is still desiring to join NATO, and that there are questions about the independence of Russian-speaking peoples and traditional, at least what Putin would say would be traditional Russian lands within the borders of Ukraine. So as it stands, the one concession I've seen from Ukraine is there's documentation today that looks like they're willing to give up the Crimea, or at least negotiate control of the Crimea. So that's a move in the right direction as far as that goes. What the Russians are going to offer in return, other than just capitulation by Kiev, does not seem to be clear yet.
Oh, it certainly isn't. And like you, I'm coming from a place of just America first, and I want the bloodshed to stop. I mean, I already think it's difficult to make an argument for us to be involved, but if we're going to get involved, then I like this approach of just trying to end the bloodshed, push for a ceasefire. I like to see this exchange of POWs happening today. So there is some small headway, but I really just want to get your thoughts too about the long term, because one day, Davis, it looks like things are getting better. Genuinely. I mean, deals are being made, dialogue being facilitated. That's a really positive step. On the other hand, you see these attacks escalating on a daily basis. So it's very confusing to me to figure out whether or not peace is even on the table and whether or not it's feasible to get there.
If we look at this as a snapshot in time, peace is not on the table today. This is an ongoing war between these two nations, and efforts to get them to stop have failed. Europe has failed them, and Ukraine has been propped up to allow them to even be in a position to continue. And again, there are a lot of background things, but if we look at this as a snapshot in time, things are not going well today. My hope is there is a future where the United States can take a role as a neutral third party. That's been made very, very difficult by, I think, very, very poor foreign policy decisions by the Biden administration. But that's what Trump wants to be able to do. He wants to be able to be a leader, to come into the room and say, we have to end the bloodshed. That has been made very, very difficult from him by the previous administration. That's made more difficult, I think, by actions of individuals like Lindsey Graham engaging in this independent diplomacy. But I think there is hope if we can at least get a ceasefire, have calmer heads prevail, and perhaps end the sending of mixed signals so that the United States can take a back seat, but be in a position to say, when you are ready to stop the killing, we will help broker a reasonable peace deal.
Okay, I hear you. Now, final question for you then, Davis. So let's look at the previous administration. They've been awfully quiet. I mean, Tony Blinken, Lloyd Austin, Joe Biden himself, they propped this war up, and I get it. I mean, the invasion of Ukraine was a horrible thing. That's egregious, and I'm not here to defend it or to justify it. I'm just trying to get past it and get to a place of peace. But I do find it very strange that the people who made this one of their central issues for years and years and years just left office after escalating this war, and now all of a sudden they're very quiet. I mean, Davis, what is that?
Well, they're remaining silent on that, like they're remaining silent on other crises they created, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Completely.
So these individuals that were seeking out, fame and seeking out every opportunity to talk about their desires and their plans for the world have disappeared, and that's truly unfortunate. And we're going to see, again, leadership and leadership failures have consequences.
Yes.
What Trump is going to be able to do in this is not clear yet. However, what we know is he's trying to clean up an incredible mess that was created, and there should be some level of accountability for that, and we should be learning lessons from this. I fear we haven't learned them yet, and if we don't learn these lessons about what it means to have strong leaders with clear signals, we are going to be involved in messes like this again in the future, and it does have devastating consequences across the world.
Certainly, and just to end with the statement from Lindsey Graham, it undermines our credibility on the world stage, trying to be an arbiter here and trying to be neutral. So again, you can take different sides and make different arguments, Ukraine good, Russia bad, whatever it is. We have a very clear mission here, and tactically, I think that's a really big mistake. So I hope the Trump administration looks at that and says, guys, you got to back off and just let us run this play, because that is not helping anything whatsoever. And honestly, I think it's just a very self-serving statement to make. I think it's all political. But having said that, Davis, I just appreciate your insights into this, because this war, it's 3.5 years into it, and I don't see what the point is. And I really want this to stop. I do, genuinely. So thank you for your insight today. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Riley. Take care.
It's left to men like Davis Younts to fight for these Navy SEALs.
Paul Davis Younts, you are an attorney who has successfully defended naval officers.
Davis Younts has been instrumental in defending
Davis Younts successfully defended an evangelical Navy lieutenant